Ever get that feeling like when you find a band you're totally into, and then, bam, their next album just flops?
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the vibe with Ubisoft right now. We're diving into an article that breaks down their, what we'll call a creative slump, and it's a wild ride.
Right.
See, Ubisoft, for those who don't spend their days in virtual worlds, they're the folks behind, like, Assassin's Creed, those games where you're parkouring off medieval castles and whatnot.
Mhm.
They were huge. So how'd they go from top of the charts to, well, kind of a cautionary tale? That's our deep dive.
Okay.
The article jumps right in with Assassin's Creed's newest release, feudal Japan this time, and right out the gate, their main character, Yosuke, caused a stir.
Yeah, and this is where it gets interesting because it's bigger than just one game, right? Ubisoft using a real historical figure, but then the way they used Yosuke,
Mm-hmm.
it sparked this whole debate about representation.
Oh, totally. Like, the article mentioned some folks felt they were dodging having a Japanese protagonist, which, come on, that's a whole other issue. But then others were like, hold on, Yusuke feels shoehorned in just to check a diversity box, which, again, not the solution either.
It's such a tightrope these days, right?
Yeah.
You've got historical accuracy on one side, creative freedom on the other, and then you add in representing cultures respectfully. It's not just making a game anymore, it's a minefield.
And sounds like Ubisoft stepped on a few mines. The article even mentions they used, get this, imagery from the Nagasaki bombing for a collectible figurine.
Oh, wow. Yeah, not a good look.
Not a good look at all.
And these missteps, especially when they pile up, it makes people wonder, are they even aware? Like, are they in tune with the impact of their choices?
Right, right. But setting that aside for a sec, this deep dive gets real when you see the financial roller coaster Ubisoft's been on. The article talks about their stock plummeting over $84 a share, down to $13 in just a few years.
Yeah, that's rough.
Rough doesn't even cover it.
It shows how brutal the gaming world is, for sure.
Yeah.
One of the big ones the article calls out is Skull and Bones tanking. That game was in development for, like, a decade.
A decade?
Imagine pouring that much time, that much money, and PFFT.
Gone! Talk about a sunk cost fallacy.
And it makes you wonder if they're even in touch with what gamers want anymore. They had Star Wars Outlaws come out in 2024, which you'd think.
Huge franchise, gotta be a hit.
Right. But even that seems to have underperformed. So it's not just one game, it's a pattern. Are they making the right games for the market? Big question.
And then there was that whole NFT thing, remember that?
Ubisoft Quartz. 2022, their big NFT play. It's like they were chasing a wave that most gamers weren't even...
Peak NFT craze, right. But the article basically said it was DOA dead on arrival. What went wrong there?
Gamers were already wary of NFTs. You know, they saw it as this cash grab. Like, you want more money from us instead of just making the games better.
Instead of adding value, it felt like, what, taking advantage?
Yeah, basically. So when Ubisoft, who's already on shaky ground, tries to push this tech backlash, big time.
Like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, then the whole NFT market kind of crashed anyway.
Just a perfect storm of bad timing and, honestly, misreading the room.
And this all leads to another hurdle for them, the legal stuff.
Right, because it's not just about games anymore, is it? It's data privacy, something everyone's grappling with.
Exactly. The article mentions this class action lawsuit they're facing over how they handle user data, specifically using that Facebook ad tracking tool, the Pixel. But this feels bigger than just Ubisoft, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's about how companies use our information, period.
Yeah.
This case, it's like a spotlight's been shown on it. And that's where it gets really interesting with Ubisoft. Like, the article lays out all these issues, the money troubles, the bad press, but it doesn't write them off completely.
Yeah, it's not like they're starting from zero. They've still got some big names in their back pocket. Rainbow Six is still going.
Yeah, for sure. And Far Cry. Those games have dedicated fans, people who want more sequels, spin-offs, maybe even some weird crossover stuff.
Yeah.
But, and this is key, they can't just keep rehashing the same thing and expect people to be thrilled.
So no more like slapping a new coat of paint on the same old game.
Gamers can sniff out a cash grab from a mile away. Ubisoft needs a creative, I don't know, refresh, new blood maybe, figure out what makes those franchises exciting now, not 5 years ago.
And maybe ditch the whole atomic bomb figurine thing while they're at it.
Exactly. It's about reading the room, being in tune with what players want, what stories are they craving, what kind of innovation are they looking for, or do they just want the classics but done really, really well?
And are they going to wait 10 years for a game that might totally flop? That financial side is huge.
Huge. Ubisoft needs to look at their development process, like really look at it. Are their budgets realistic? Are those development times sustainable? Are they chasing trends instead of setting them? Because sticking with what's not working, that's a recipe for disaster.
So are we talking a complete overhaul of how they do things? That's a tall order, even without all the other stuff they've got going on.
It is, but not impossible. And the article actually brings up a good point. Remember that whole NFT thing we talked about?
Hard to forget, honestly. It's like the cautionary tale of the year.
Right. But what if they're onto something with the idea itself, just not the execution?
Hold on, you're saying NFTs in games? That wasn't a completely terrible idea.
Think about it. Instead of forcing it on people, what if they'd made it organic? Like
Yeah.
a way to reward players for their time. Imagine earning a unique item, but you actually own it because you beat some crazy challenge or hit a top rank.
So less about making a quick buck, more about genuine value for the player.
Exactly. Showing them you get their concerns, that you're actually trying to make the game better, not just more profitable.
It's like the difference between a company trying to sell you something versus them creating something you actually want to be a part of.
Right. That's the shift. Building trust, actual engagement. That's where Ubisoft's comeback potential is.
Okay, but let's say they do all that, focus on quality, listen to their players. Is that enough to turn it around?
$1 million question, right?
Right.
They've got a lot to make up for.
It's like they've been stumbling through a minefield blindfolded, and now they got to backtrack very carefully. What does that even look like? If you were giving them advice, what's priority number one?
Honestly. Slow down. The pressure to pump out new releases is insane, but rushing games out before they're ready, that's how you get buggy messes that disappoint everyone.
So quality over quantity. Simple in theory.
Much harder in
Right.
practice, especially with investors breathing down their necks, yeah.
Exactly. But it takes, what, discipline. Long-term thinking. You have to build that loyal fan base over time. And you do that by, like you said, actually delivering, giving them something great.
No more cutting corners to meet deadlines, yeah.
Yeah.
And while we're at it, that whole listening to players thing needs to be more than just a bullet point on a PowerPoint.
So actually reading the comments, engaging with the community,
And responding to it, acknowledging criticism, being transparent about decisions.
instead of just like throwing out another PR-approved statement that says nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rebuild that connection. Show players that you actually care what they think. Because without them,
Well, there's no Ubisoft.
it's like they forgot who they're making these games for in the first place.
It happens. Companies get caught up in the numbers, the pressure to perform, and they lose sight of the people who actually matter.
This has been kind of eye-opening, honestly. We went from ninjas and historical figures to like data privacy and the importance of trust.
That's a deep dive for you, right? Never know where you'll end up.
For sure. And it shows that even if you're not like a diehard gamer, this stuff matters.
Because we're all consumers at the end of the day. We all have companies we support, products we love.
And as consumers, we've got more power than we realize.
Way more.
Our choices, what we say, what we demand, that shapes things. It's like hitting reset, but not on the game itself, on the whole company almost.
It's a mentality shift. Like from selling to serving. Serve the players, the community,
Yeah.
even if it means tough calls in the short term, you know? And that's what's really got me thinking. Because this isn't just Ubisoft, is it? It's how any company, especially tech, is dealing with, well, everything changing so fast.
It's wild out there. The rule book's being written as we go. What worked yesterday might be obsolete tomorrow. You need to adapt constantly, and that's hard, especially for companies used to being on top.
Easy to get comfy when you're winning, right? Then a few things go wrong and suddenly you're playing catch up.
And those things can come out of nowhere. Look how much gaming's changed, even just the last couple of years. New tech. Players want different things.
Yeah.
You snooze, you lose, basically.
Which brings us back to that big question. Can Ubisoft actually pull it off, this turnaround? Or is this it for them?
The article doesn't say for sure, and I kind of think that's on purpose. There's no magic answer, no guaranteed pass back to the top. It's all on them now.
So they're at this crossroads. One way leads to, I don't know, fading away. The other, we don't know, but hopefully something good.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway here. None of us know what the future holds. Industry shift, tech changes. The only guarantee is change.
So for our listeners, what do they do with all this? Gamer or not, techie or not, what's the core message?
Don't be afraid to question things. A company's doing something shady, and the industry's stuck in its ways. Even just your own assumptions. Challenge it, demand better, make your voice heard.
Be informed, be engaged, and don't shut up if something feels wrong.
Exactly. Who knows, maybe by asking those tough questions, pushing for more transparency, we can actually make things better, not just in gaming, but everywhere.
That's a pretty hopeful note to end on. So, listeners, we leave you with this. Think about the companies you support, the products you love, the whole system even. Are they keeping up? Are they listening to you? Are they working for you? And if not, what are you going to do about it?